They called it unsinkable, a 46,000-ton masterpiece of Edwardian hubris, forged from 3 million iron rivets and a belief that man had finally out-engineered the ocean. But at 12,000 feet below the North Atlantic, the blueprint tells a different story. It wasn't just an iceberg that killed 1,500 people. The tragedy wasn't a sudden act of God. It was a slow, mechanical cascade of failures that began long before the first block of ice touched the hull. It was a 1,000-degree coal fire, brittle iron rivets, and a structural flaw hidden behind the mahogany panels. In the next 15 minutes, we go inside the final 48 hours to dissect the mechanical death of a Leviathan. We are stripping the Titanic to the steel to see how a machine designed to be a sanctuary became a cage. This is the Titanic deconstructed. April 12, 1912, 400 miles off the coast of Ireland. To the world, the Titanic was a floating palace. To the engineers, it was a complex grid of 16 watertight compartments. The blueprint dictated that the ship could survive any 2 compartments, or even the first 4. No maritime disaster in history had ever breached more than that. The designers at Harland & Wolff believed they had built the ultimate ice cube tray. If one section filled, the others would stay dry. But the steel itself carried a hidden terminal illness. The hull plates were cold short, rich in sulfur and oxygen. In the temperate waters of the Irish Sea, the steel was flexible, but in the freezing sub-zero currents of the North Atlantic, the metal's molecular structure changed. It became brittle. It became fragile. Instead of denting upon impact, it was prepared to shatter like glass. While the passengers in first class dined on oysters and champagne, a structural cancer was already eating the ship from the inside. A fire had been smoldering in coal bunker number 9 since the ship left Belfast. It was unreachable. It was untamable. For days, the heat reached 1,000 degrees Celsius, pressing against bulkhead E. This wasn't just a fire, it was a thermal weakening of the ship's very spine. The blueprint was compromised before the voyage even began. April 14th, 11:40 p.m. The Atlantic is a flat plate of glass. There is no moon, and a cold mirage masks the horizon. When the iceberg finally emerges from the dark, the Titanic is moving at 22.5 knots, nearly top speed. The order is given, hard a starboard, full astern. The collision lasted only 37 seconds. But in those seconds, the Titanic's 3 million rivets were subjected to forces they were never engineered to withstand. These rivets weren't all steel. To save time and money, the bow and stern used slag-heavy wrought iron. Under the immense pressure of the ice, the rivet heads didn't bend. They popped like champagne corks. The iceberg didn't gash the ship. It buckled the plates, causing the seams to open. The unzipping of the Titanic created 6 narrow openings, totaling only 12 square feet. But these 12 square feet were spread across 5 compartments. The blueprint was designed to survive 4. By breaching the 5th, the ice cube tray was broken. The math of the sinking was now absolute. The Titanic was dead. It just hadn't realized it yet. As the bow dipped, the true structural flaw of the Titanic was revealed. The watertight bulkheads did not go all the way to the top of the ship. They ended at E deck. The engineers assumed that the ship would never tilt far enough for water to reach the ceiling of the compartments. They were wrong. The weight of water in the bow pulled the ship's nose down, lifting the stern. Seawater surged over the top of bulkhead E, the very wall weakened by the coal fire, and spilled into the next dry section, then the next, then the next. It was a mechanical certainty. The ship was filling like a tilted tray under a faucet. Inside the boiler rooms, the scene was an industrial nightmare. Men worked in waist-deep water, trying to vent the steam from the boilers to prevent a massive explosion that would have blown the ship apart instantly. Above them, in the luxury suites, the tilt was becoming inescapable. Pianos began to slide. The crystal chandeliers began to groan under the changing center of gravity. The architecture of luxury was being reclaimed by the physics of the abyss. "2:17 a.m. The Titanic is no longer a ship. It is a 52,000-ton lever. The bow is anchored by thousands of tons of seawater, while the stern is raised 45 degrees into the air, completely unsupported. The massive bronze propellers, each weighing 38 tons, are exposed to the cold night air. The hull was never designed to support its own weight out of water. The tension on the upper decks reached its elastic limit. In the dark, the survivors heard a sound they described as artillery fire. It was the sound of the double-bottom spines snapping. The steel groaned, twisted, and finally tore in half. The lights flickered out as the main electrical lines were severed. The bow began its long, silent glide to the bottom. For a moment, the stern settled back into the water, appearing to float. But it was a final, cruel illusion. The open end of the stern took on water rapidly. It spun in a slow, agonizing circle before being dragged down into the black by its own weight. The blueprint of the world's greatest ship was now two separate pieces of scrap metal. The descent to the seafloor was a second tragedy. The bow, streamlined and filled with water, fell relatively smoothly, flying through the water at 30 miles per hour. It hit the mud with such force that it buried itself 60 feet deep, preserving much of its internal structure in a cold, pressurized tomb. But the stern's descent was a nightmare of physics. Unlike the bow, the stern contained large air pockets. As it sank, the water pressure increased by 14.7 pounds per square inch for every 33 feet. At 2,000 feet, the pressure became too great. The air pockets imploded. The stern was literally crushed from the inside out. Decks were pancaked onto each other. The heavy engines fell through the weakened floor. When the remnants of the stern finally hit the seafloor, it wasn't a ship anymore. It was a 2-mile debris field. For 73 years, this field lay in total darkness, a secret blueprint of failure, hidden under 2.5 miles of water. It wasn't until 1985, when Robert Ballard's Argo camera sled caught the image of a single boiler, that the world finally saw the wreckage. The unsinkable ship was now a rusted skeleton, being slowly consumed by iron-eating bacteria. The Titanic didn't sink because of an iceberg. It sank because of a dozen small technical failures that aligned perfectly in the dark. It was the hubris of the ice cube tray design. It was the cost-cutting of the iron rivets. It was the sulfur in the steel. The wreck is now disappearing. The rusticles are eating the iron at a rate of 200 pounds a day. Within our lifetime, the Titanic will be nothing more than a red stain on the ocean floor. The blueprint will finally be erased. If you were the architect, what would you have changed? Would you have reinforced the bulkheads, or would you have changed the arrogance of the men who thought they could conquer the sea? Let me know in the comments. For more dissections of the world's most hidden structures, subscribe to the Blueprints. I'll see you in the deep.